Welcome back to Mind the Gap. It's really good to have you here.
Yeah, welcome back. And if you're listening to this while doing something else, walking, cleaning, or just sitting there staring at the wall, you're still very much part of this conversation.
I want to start with a picture. It's a quiet one. You're sitting at your desk. You've done what you're supposed to do, some vocabulary, some listening practice, and then a question shows up. What am I actually doing?
That question always feels a bit rude, doesn't it? It just shows up without asking for permission.
And the thing is, it doesn't come from laziness. It usually appears right after you've tried quite hard. That's what makes it confusing. You're doing the work, but doubt still manages to sneak in.
I sometimes feel like I'm not even learning English. I'm just negotiating with my own brain every single day.
And from the outside, everything looks fine. You haven't stopped, you're still showing up, but inside there's this pressure saying you should be clearer by now.
Yeah, like there's a deadline we somehow missed, even though no one ever told us there was one.
And that's why we wanted to slow things down today. This episode isn't here to give you answers about life, and it's definitely not here to tell you off.
It's more like we want to look at a few feelings that often get mixed together. Consistency, self-doubt, feeling lost.
Because when they're all tangled up, everything feels heavier than it needs to be. But once you start separating them, the anxiety doesn't vanish, it just becomes easier to carry.
So we're not here to hype you up, but we're also not here to tell you to stop trying.
If you can feel a bit calmer after listening and still take the next small step without blaming yourself the whole time, then this conversation is doing its job.
So if you're thinking, I'm not completely lost, but I'm definitely not clear either, you're probably exactly where you need to be.
It's funny, actually. When people talk about consistency, we often imagine someone gritting their teeth and pushing through. Like, if it hurts, it must mean it's working. But that idea causes more damage than we realize.
Yeah, it almost sounds heroic. If you're exhausted, stressed, and miserable, then you must be doing something meaningful.
Exactly, and that's where things go wrong. Because people who actually last, the ones who keep going for years, they're usually not suffering all the time. They're adjusting.
That's interesting because it feels a bit less dramatic, but also more realistic.
I think we've confused consistency with endurance. Endurance is about holding on no matter what. Consistency, though, is more like a relationship. Sometimes you lean in, sometimes you step back, but you don't disappear.
That makes a lot of sense, because when I think about learning English, the moment I feel overwhelmed, my brain goes straight to, maybe I should just stop.
And that reaction isn't because you don't care enough. It's usually because you've been relying on willpower for too long. Willpower is like a battery. It trains.
And once it's empty, everything feels 10 times harder. Even small things start to feel impossible.
Exactly. That's why I prefer thinking about inner drive instead. It's quieter. It doesn't shout at you to be motivated. It's more like background music. You don't notice it all the time, but when it's gone for too long, something feels off.
That's such a good way to put it, because when I stop completely, even if I tell myself I'm taking a break, I don't actually feel relaxed.
Right, because deep down, you know you've cut off something that matters to you. So real consistency isn't about doing everything every day. It's about staying connected, even at a lower level.
So instead of quitting, it might just mean doing less, like listening for 10 minutes or doing one small thing and stopping there.
Exactly. Consistency isn't full effort. It's permission. Permission to slow down without deleting the whole thing from your life.
And I think that's such a relief to hear, because it means you don't have to burn yourself out to move forward.
Exactly. And once that pressure eases, we can start talking about something else, honestly. Like why we're so quick to doubt ourselves in the first place.
What you said earlier actually reminds me of something. Once we stop burning ourselves out, another pattern often shows up very quickly: self-doubt.
It's like the moment things don't go smoothly, my brain jumps straight to conclusions.
And here's the uncomfortable truth. People who doubt themselves a lot are often not weak at all. They're usually very serious about what they're doing.
That's interesting because it doesn't feel that way when you're inside it. It just feels like, I'm bad at this.
Exactly. And the reason it feels so convincing is because we treat the current feeling as a final verdict. Something goes wrong today, and suddenly it becomes a statement about who you are.
Yeah, like missing one listening question, and somehow my brain is already saying, I'll never be good at English.
And that jump happens because we're in a rush. Not a bad rush, by the way. It's not that being eager is wrong, it's that we're too eager to decide what this means.
So instead of saying, today didn't go well, we go straight to, this proves something about me.
Exactly. And once you've labelled it like that, everything that follows gets filtered through it. Every small mistake becomes evidence, and that's incredibly heavy to carry.
And it's exhausting because it's not just about the task anymore. It feels personal.
There's another layer to this as well. Self-doubt can actually give us a strange sense of control. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. Not knowing where you're headed is scary. So saying, I'm just not good at this, can feel oddly calming.
That's so true. It's like closing the case, even if the answer hurts.
Exactly. But the cost of that kind of closure is that you stop exploring, you stop adjusting, and eventually you stop trying.
So if we don't want to jump to conclusions that fast, what should we be asking instead?
I think a much fairer question is this. Instead of asking, am I just not suited for this? Try asking, have I actually exhausted all the reasonable attempts?
That feels very different. It shifts the focus from who I am to what I've actually done.
Exactly. Because most of the time, the problem isn't that you're incapable, it's that you're still in the middle of the process. And the middle is always messier than we expect.
And hearing that alone already takes a bit of the weight off.
It does. And once that weight lifts, we can finally look at the next question honestly. Not what's wrong with me, but why do I feel so lost sometimes?
What you just said about feeling lost actually brings us to something important. Because feeling lost doesn't always mean the same thing. And that's where a lot of unnecessary anxiety comes from.
Sometimes it feels like one big word that explains everything, even though it really doesn't.
I often think of it like walking in fog. When you're in the fog, you're not supposed to see the whole road, you're only meant to see the next few steps. So not seeing the destination doesn't automatically mean you're lost.
That already feels reassuring, because I think a lot of us panic the moment we can't see far ahead.
Exactly. And that's why it helps to separate confusion into two types. Not in a textbook way, but in a very lived, everyday way.
Okay, so what does that look like in real life?
The first kind is what I'd call directional confusion. You're moving, you're doing things, but you don't know where they'll lead. It feels uncomfortable, but there's still a sense of motion underneath.
That sounds very familiar. Like when I'm studying, I'm doing the work, but I keep thinking, is this actually getting me anywhere?
Exactly. And that kind of confusion is very common during exploration. It doesn't mean you're failing. It usually means you're collecting information that hasn't formed a clear picture yet.
So it's uncomfortable, but not necessarily dangerous.
Exactly. The second kind is more draining. Value confusion. This is when you start questioning why you're doing something at all. Doing it feels pointless, but stopping doesn't feel right either.
That one feels heavier, because it's not just about direction anymore. It feels like the meaning itself is slipping.
Yes, and a lot of anxiety comes from mixing these two up.
You're actually in the first situation, just unsure where the road leads, but you interpret it as the second and think something is deeply wrong.
That explains so much. Because sometimes I'm not unmotivated, I'm just tired of not seeing results.
So a very simple way to tell the difference is this. Ask yourself one question. Are you still willing to take the next small step?
And if the answer is yes?
Then you're most likely dealing with directional confusion. What you need isn't harsh judgment, you need feedback, more experience, more reality to respond to.
That already feels much calmer. It turns I'm lost into I'm still finding my way.
And once you see confusion this way, it stops being a warning sign and starts becoming information.
And I guess that makes the next question unavoidable. What happens when you don't even know what the next step is?
What you just asked about not even knowing the next step, that actually points to a third kind of confusion. And honestly, it's the hardest one to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know what I want sounds so empty. Almost like you've got nothing going on at all.
That's why it's often misunderstood. But most of the time, it's not emptiness, it's overload. Too many options, too many expectations, too many voices telling you what matters.
Somehow, every option already feels wrong, even before you try it.
That's exactly it. So it's not that you don't want anything, it's that you don't know which choice is worth the cost that comes with it. Time, energy, risk, disappointment.
Starting feels terrifying. Because starting almost feels like announcing, this is the path I've chosen.
For people who take things seriously, that feels like a huge commitment. So doing nothing can feel safer. At least you haven't chosen wrong.
But staying there doesn't feel good either.
No, it doesn't. And here's something very important to remember. Most people don't discover direction by thinking harder. They discover it by doing and slowly ruling things out.
So direction comes after movement, not before it.
And when someone says, I don't know what to do, very often the real issue isn't lack of options, it's a very low tolerance for trying.
Because trying means you might fail, or change your mind, or realize this isn't it.
So instead of asking huge questions like, what should I do with my life? I think it helps to ask something much smaller.
Okay, what kind of question?
Try this. Is there one thing I could do right now that wouldn't feel like betraying myself?
And that feels much gentler and much more doable.
Exactly. It doesn't ask for passion. It doesn't ask for certainty. It just asks you to stay honest and to move a little.
That one small step isn't supposed to solve everything.
It's just there to give you something real to respond to. And once you have that, clarity tends to follow, slowly, quietly.
I think that's such a relief to hear, because not knowing what to do doesn't mean you failed. It might just mean you're ready to start smaller.
Listening to everything we've talked about so far, it might already feel quite personal. But this is where English learning fits in very naturally, because learning a language is a bit like a condensed version of life.
Slow progress, lots of frustration, and endless comparison with other people.
You put in effort, but the feedback doesn't come right away. Some days you feel like you're moving forward, and then suddenly it feels like you've gone backwards.
And that's when all the old things come back. Self-doubt, questioning yourself, wondering if it's even worth continuing.
Right, which is why today's conversation matters, because the way you interpret these moments often matters more than the moments themselves.
So it's not just about learning better, it's about thinking differently while you're learning.
Exactly. If you're constantly judging yourself, every practice session becomes a trial. But if you understand what stage you're in, the same effort suddenly feels lighter.
I really like that idea because it explains why some people keep going without looking stressed all the time.
They're not necessarily more disciplined, they're just wasting less energy on inner conflict.
They're not fighting themselves every day.
That feels very real, because on hard days, most of my energy isn't spent on studying, it's spent on feeling bad about studying.
So the action version of everything we've talked about today isn't pushing harder, it's understanding more clearly. Once the noise quiets down, action becomes much more natural.
And that's where the calm comes from. Not from giving up, but from not attacking yourself all the time.
Exactly. Calm isn't doing nothing. Calm is when you stop sentencing yourself every day. You still show up, you just do it without the constant self-punishment.
So if you're listening to this and you still feel unsure, that's okay. We're not asking you to suddenly feel confident.
All we're really hoping for is that the next time you think, I'm just not good at this, you pause for a second.
And maybe change the sentence to something like, I'm still in the middle of this, or I'm still learning.
That small shift doesn't look dramatic, but over time, it makes continuing feel possible.
That quiet, steady way of moving forward is often what actually lasts.
As we come to the end of this conversation, I keep thinking about that image we mentioned earlier. Walking in fog. You don't see the whole road, you never do.
You only see what's right in front of you.
Exactly, and that's not a problem. That's how it's meant to be. So you don't need to figure out your whole future. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to walk the next small part.
That feels a lot less intimidating already.
Here's a gentle reminder for the moments when self-blame starts creeping back in. Instead of asking, am I just not good enough? Try pausing.
Just a second.
And then ask something much smaller. Is there one small thing I can do today that won't make me disappear?
I really like that wording because it doesn't demand progress, it just asks for presence.
Exactly. And most of the time, that small act is enough to keep the connection alive. You're still here. You're still part of the process.
So, if this episode helped you untangle things in your head, even just a little bit, maybe save it.
Yeah, come back to it on a harder day when everything feels messy again.
And if you found this conversation helpful, it would really mean a lot if you could like it, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it too.
We'll be back next week with another quiet conversation.
Until then, take care and we'll see you next time.